Welcome back to another edition of Research Fantasy presents our NBA Fantasy Baller DFS edition. I am Nick from CWE, and I'm here to break down 3 games, which very well is likely to be our last 3-game slate of NBA DFS all year. Got a lot going on today, so I'm going to try to keep this brief. I will be posting a NASCAR video immediately after this, so stay tuned for that. Our package is available for free. I'm probably going to give free access to those who sign up this week, next week, because Talladega is such a crapshoot that it really isn't a great week to do an initial launch. But nonetheless, let's break down the games. We've got Cleveland at Toronto trying to close things out. And, I mean, to me, just watching these games, even when Toronto wants to be competitive, they're just not. Toronto actually somehow looks less competitive than Indiana did. I think it starts and ends with LeBron James here for the Cavs. Not much more needs to be said than that. Could you play Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love? Absolutely could. Is there an outside chance that a Deron Williams, Kyle Korver, Channing Frye ends up with a good game? Tristan Thompson? Absolutely. But I think your main priority here is to get LeBron James in your lineup. Probably move on from there. Try to find some pieces. Outside of that, it just really has not been a dominating series but by anybody but LeBron. And really, it hasn't been a dominating playoff. And a lot of people really think that the Cavs this year are not as good as last year. I tend to agree with that notion. It's going to be interesting if it is them and Golden State in the finals. I really hope it isn't and the Cavs lose, because I want to kind of squash any of the narrative that Kevin Durant was the only difference in the Warriors had to super stack to beat Cleveland. But if you're a basketball fan, you know that ideology is absolute nonsense to begin with, because unlike Cleveland, Golden State actually drafted their entire team and didn't just try to buy players. All right, on top of that, let's go to Toronto. Kyle Lowry looking doubtful for tonight, which means we'll see another helping of Corey Joseph. Not a bad play. Definitely helps you in the price, because, you need to save money somewhere, and he's the guy that's going to do it for you. DeMar DeRozan finally had a good game. It just seems that DeRozan needs to, have Lowry out in order to be worthwhile. Serge Ibaka is a fairly decent option. I really don't know, though. I'm inclined to say that it's probably worth passing on him. Focus on, Jonas Valanciunas. If he's going to see time, which it seems like he's going to, he's been productive with the time he's got on the court. Norman Powell, worth a shot. The price is up, but he's still a part of this offense. Guys like Damari Carroll, PJ Tucker, just really in terms of fantasy, have just been absolutely worthless. Between the two of them, I think they have one good fantasy game thus far, so I'm willing to pass. Moving on to Boston and Washington. Boston up 2-1. This is thus far following the mold of the Washington-Atlanta series, where the home team has won every game. On the Boston side of things, for me, it starts and ends with Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford. Those are the only 2 consistent options. And quite frankly, I like Al Horford just a little bit better than Thomas. You're saving about $700. That triple-double upside is clutch. It's absolutely huge, especially on a site like DraftKings or Fantasy Draft, because you're getting the bonus for it. But it just shows that they're able to contribute. If one area is falling a little bit short, he can pick it up in other aspects of the game. Really, honestly, outside of Boston, or outside of those two on Boston, it's a crapshoot. You could have Jay Crowder. He's probably my favorite of all the guys that are left in that kind of on the starters, because he can put together pretty well developed stat lines. Avery Bradley, just way too hit or miss for me, and that price is a little restrictive. Needing about 32 fantasy points. He's done it, but just ultimately isn't my favorite. Marcus Smart remains a little overpriced. I think I'd be willing to go back to the Terry Rozier well. Didn't see, apparently he's a bench player who's only going to see minutes if the game is like on the line. And that didn't happen. He only saw 9 minutes last time, but I think at his price, he's still worth a look. Yeah, 2,200. I mean, he had been getting near 20 points in some circumstances. Just the price didn't really reflect the output. All right, moving on to Washington. John Wall or bust. John Wall has probably been the most consistent player south of LeBron James in the playoffs. He's a lock in my lineups if I can fit him in. Marcin Gortat playing very good basketball right now, which is a little bit shocking to say. Price is good. I think he can manage to continue to make value. He's had 41, 34, 34 in the past 3 games, so gotta love the potential upside at that price. So he's a guy I'd be penciling in. Bradley Beal and Otto Porter. Next guys up with Kelly Oubre suspended. It's likely, it's not likely that you're going to see some random getting the call up. It's probably going to be more minutes for Otto Porter, who for 5 games in a row now has exceeded value. Bradley Beal does not have that same lofty, he has not played like that consistently, but at the same time, he's got the most upside on the team, and I'll never touch Markieff Morris in a situation like this, probably ever. I mean, he's one of my least favorite basketball players. Bojan Bogdanovic at his price, I think it's actually pretty tight on FanDuel. 4K, guy that can get 20, 30 fantasy points, can also get 2. If you think he's going to see the Oubre time, I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. San Antonio 2-1 lead over Houston. Looks like San Antonio was really offended by that demolishing they took in the first game of the series. No Tony Parker means that Kawhi Leonard has to do it all, which he did. Price is actually a little bit down. At that price, I'm willing to buy in all day. He almost had a triple-double and didn't hit value. That's sometimes a little bit crazy, but I think I'd be willing to look at him definitely tonight. LaMarcus Aldridge finally came through with the game I've been waiting for him to have the entire playoffs. Again, I think without Tony Parker and it being crunch time, he's going to have to come through. So 7K on FanDuel, excellent price for him. Patty Mills with no Tony Parker, he came through. His price is way up there now. I don't know. And like I said, I mean, it's one of those situations where even though he gets the minutes, the production can sometimes be a little bit funky with Patty Mills, but that doesn't stop him from being a tournament option. And then I don't mind Pau Gasol at all. Danny Green is a little bit of a tournament interest to me. Still on 3 games. I'm not playing cash games. I really just don't see the point of that. But Danny Green could be a guy, as cheap as he is, that could be someone who you could potentially use as a filler in your lineup and not be horribly disappointed. This isn't the regular season. Houston, James Harden finally had like his first big scoring game of the series. Just really wasn't enough in terms of fantasy or real life. The fantasy line was lacking. I mean, 2 rebounds, 5 assists. The 3 steals are nice, but basically the way I always look at Harden is his steals, I'm hoping, just cover his turnovers, which they did here. He's going to have to put together a fuller stat line, and all that 43, 2, and 5 really tells me is that his teammates weren't getting the job done in the shooting column, and that's pretty much how it pans out. Beyond him, Ryan Anderson was absolutely horrible after putting up 2 straight games. He remains a long shot tournament option. Don't mind Clint Capella. He's been playing really well. Price is up there, but as long as he's producing, he's got to be someone we consider. Trevor Ariza has bounced around in terms of his production, but he's worth a look. And then outside of that, I'd basically just be looking at Patrick Beverley and Eric Gordon. Lou Williams has fallen completely out of things here. So that's pretty much where I'd end things tonight. Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Head over to researchfantasy.com. Sign up for our NBA mailing list. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Research and Win. And join us again tomorrow.